Hello, everyone. Welcome to my one-on-one interview with Tom Blefko. My name is Richard Boas. For those who don't know me, I'm a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. I'm also a member of the LCAR Communications Committee. For those unfamiliar, you probably know us from our monthly articles that we write. We do several blogs, several articles, just touching on things that are happening in the industry right now. But today we're doing something a little different. I have the pleasure of being joined by Tom Blefko. He's the Director of Operations at Berkshire Hathaway North Point. He's also an associate broker, and he is 2021's LCAR President. So Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's great to be here, Richard. Glad I could share a couple minutes with you here this morning and also with the LCAR membership.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you again. I appreciate your time. So let's just get right into it. So every superhero has their origin story, usually pretty tragic, but hopefully yours isn't. So just kind of want to see, what got you into real estate, kind of your beginnings there.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm a Lancaster County guy. I was born and raised here. I went to school here, both in high school, went to Lancaster Catholic and also Franklin and Marshall College. So I've been around Lancaster virtually all my life. And having said that, I'm now living in Hummelstown, which is in Dauphin County. And I've been there for 15, 20 years. But the commute back and forth to Lancaster is relatively easy. I just go up and down 283. As far as getting into the business itself, when I got out of college, which was 1981, and for those of you counting, you're probably saying, okay, that makes Tom this many years old. Got out in 1981, deep in a recession, so didn't have a lot of job opportunities at the time. Locally got into the hotel business. I was in the hotel business for about 2-3 years. For those of you that are old enough to remember the Brunswick in downtown Lancaster, that's where I started. Then went to the host town, which is on Keller Avenue, which has since been demolished a couple of years ago. That really makes me feel old. And then also out to the Lancaster Host Farm, which is the Wyndham now, that has been totally renovated. In fact, our association, which I'll talk about a little later, is going to be out there for our end of year gathering. So it's going to be a brand new facility for us. But that's what I did prior to getting into real estate. I was in it for about 2.5 years, decided I really didn't want to do this. And there were some things leading up to that. But I decided if I was going to invest all my time and energy, I wanted to make sure that I was going to get something out of it. And I looked around at various industries, decided that real estate was the way I wanted to go. So I got my salesperson's license in 1983. And then my broker's license I got 8 years later. During the course, I was a salesperson with a company locally here called Warren Weaver, which does not exist anymore. But I started with that company. Warren was a great mentor of mine. Also, Harold Kaufman, who was the sales manager there. I probably drove him crazy the first year or two because all I did was I was this giant sponge that wanted to ask questions. But I mean, over the years, I've been involved with sales. As I said, about 10 years into it, I got involved with management. I ended up training. I do pre-licensing classes. I've done a lot of stuff in this business, and that's one of the things I like about it. So that's kind of like my beginning in this business.
So not to make you feel old, Tom, but you've been in real estate longer than I've been alive. So
thanks for pointing that out, Rich. I appreciate it.
No problem. So obviously, you have this illustrious real estate career. So you've seen everything, I have to imagine. But obviously, there has to be something that has kept you in this industry for so long. So what is it about real estate that just you love so much?
Well, unlike a lot of friends that I know that are in professions that I see on kind of an ongoing basis, and they actually have a calendar where they're counting down the days to when they're retiring. And they're saying, I can't wait to get out of this job. I just can't stand it anymore. but I'm just hanging on for that whatever's at the end of the rainbow. Real estate to me has been totally different in that, you do so much in this business. And over the course of my 38 years, things have just changed incredibly. And they change on an ongoing basis. It keeps things interesting. When I come into the office today and in my management capacity, I don't know sometimes what I'm going to be hit with. And there are things that I deal with on an ongoing basis that I'm looking at going, gosh, I've never seen this before. I've never dealt with this before. That's what keeps it fresh for me, is that there's always something new in this business, which I love.
So speaking of changes, again, being in real estate as long as you have, I'm sure you've seen huge changes in the industry. I mean, I'm sure when you got into real estate, they were building homes with mud and sticks. I'm kidding. But what are some like major changes? How's real estate really changed since you started out?
Well, since I started out, let me give you a few things that, we just kind of take for granted right now. First of all, the agreement of sale was a page and a half long. Front side, back side, no addendums. In fact, the only addendum there was an FHA addendum if you drew up an FHA transaction. So, I mean, the paperwork itself was just like this compared to what it is today with disclosures and things like that. This wasn't around back in the day. There was no such thing as a smartphone. There was no such thing as a cell phone. I recall like my second or third year in the business being in a sales meeting, and there was a cell phone salesperson that came to our meeting, brought this big, huge, clunky, I think it was like a suitcase, pulled out this cell phone and told us about how this was going to revolutionize not only our business, but everything that we do in the world. And I came away from that sales meeting thinking, this guy is out of his mind.
There's no way, yeah.
He's absolutely crazy. And look what's happened in the interim. Between, they used to be car phones that were hard mounted into your cars. Now these things go with us no matter where we are. I mean, that's been a huge change. I mean, advertising, the way that we advertised properties back in the day, there was no internet, there was no email. All that stuff was just, it was non-existent. So we advertised, dare I say, in the newspaper.
Kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Exactly. So all of these things, when I first got into the business, I took for granted, and I've seen all the changes since then. I gotta say, changes for the better.
Well, I have to imagine even email, I'm sure that had to be a game changer as well.
I mean, when you would negotiate a contract, think of what we do today, either in zip forms or dot loop or some other type of program that we all have, and we have electronic signatures. And I'm sure some of the transactions that you've negotiated back and forth over the years, where you're going back and forth 2 and 3 times, sometimes that takes maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you would do a change at a seller's property at their kitchen table, get the hard signature, then you drive over to the listing agent's office, which may be a half hour away. They would then drive to their buyer's home. They would get initials, and they'd obviously counteroffer. Sometimes doing this would take an entire day to get done. We can do it now in 15 minutes. It's just totally changed our business.
Oh, I'm sure. So let's talk about LCAR a little bit. You are, again, the 2021 president of LCAR. Can you just kind of explain, what exactly are the duties and responsibilities of the president? I mean, I'm sure it's not just an honorary title. I'm sure you actually have some some responsibility.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing this year. This is one of those jobs that you get at the very beginning, and you're kind of 6-8 months into it, and you're just getting the hang of it, and then somebody else comes in. But I've been very fortunate. I've had some great mentors who I've known ahead of time that have been in the role of president. I've talked to them and picked their brains, so it's been a much smoother transition for me. But unlike what most people think about a quote-unquote president, the president at LCAR really doesn't make the decisions for LCAR. I'm there mainly as a facilitator with the board of directors, which, we can talk about a little bit then. But the board of directors, that's a group of 15 individuals that we meet on a monthly basis, and I run those meetings. And my role in that meeting is to facilitate conversation and discussion and make sure that all thoughts and ideas are put on the table so that we can all take a look at them, because we try to have some kind of diversity of opinions and ideas. It doesn't help if everybody thinks exactly alike. So my job is really to oversee that group and also to make sure that everybody is heard. In addition to that, as president, our association gets a lot of communication from news media and outside sources looking for either quotes or things that that we can provide them that deal with real estate. In most instances, those requests are passed on to me. So you could say I'm kind of like the face and the voice of the association in Lancaster County as far as real estate is concerned. So I have to make sure that what I'm saying to the various outlets is representative of our entire association. So those are kind of some of the things. The only other thing that I'd say is, which we may end up talking about, is part of what the president does also is meets with elected officials, state representatives, senators, things like that. Let them know what we as an association feel is important for the real estate industry, not only locally, but on a statewide level and on a national level. And our voice is heard because of some of the groundwork that we have laid over the years. So.
Awesome. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, with the board of directors. Mm-hmm. We get the monthly emails, board of director meetings, but I'm sure a lot of agents probably see that and maybe don't think too much into it, or maybe aren't really sure exactly, what the board of directors even is. Mm-hmm. So can you just kind of touch on that, kind of how the decisions are made and kind of what that process is like?
Sure. Let's start at the beginning of the board of directors and how you actually get to be sitting on the board of directors itself. LCAR has a nominations committee. Nomination committee is made up of past presidents, the existing president, the president-elect, where they get together, they look at our entire membership, and their goal is to try to get a group of individuals on the board of directors that they can propose to the membership, so the membership can take a look at them and say, hey, this is a pretty good group, pretty diverse in ideas. They just can't randomly select these people. If you read our bylaws, which is an interesting body of work, but if you read our bylaws, it's you have to have so many brokers on this body. You have to have so many salespeople. You can't have so many people from one firm. You have to have representatives from large firms, from small firms. We strive to have a commercial and industrial member on the board, also somebody from the appraisal council. Once again, what we're trying to get is a broad range of people so that we get a lot of different opinions. Once that nominations committee has put that slate forth, at the end of the year, usually at least in the past before the pandemic, it was put in front of the membership for a vote at usually some type of meeting at the end of the year where the slate of officers, not only the slate of officers, but the board of directors is approved by the membership. And then from that point, those members serve for at least a year. And it's kind of a rotating thing in that you may have a 3-year term and somebody else sitting next to you on the board of directors might have a year term or a 2-year term. So it's constantly changing and we're getting new people there and ideas there.
Awesome. So let's kind of talk about, behind the scenes as far as the LCAR goes. You did touch on it a little bit, but, just being a realtor myself, talking with agents, once a year, we have that time where, we got to pay our association dues and, everyone grumbles and, oh, I got to pay my dues. Obviously those dues they serve a purpose, but I feel like a lot of agents maybe don't know, maybe what benefits they're getting from paying their dues. So can you kind of just touch on that, as far as the benefits that realtors have, being a part of the association?
Sure. That dues bill, by the way, that each one of our members gets is actually has three components to it.
Right.
There's a national association due, Pennsylvania association, and a local association due. It's kind of lumped into one big bill. And I think the very first misconception that I hear from a lot of people is that bill itself is just the local membership. So that's the biggest misconception. But there are so many different things that members can get involved with at LCAR that benefit them. I'll try to touch on a couple here. I mean, there's an educational component. We have our own real estate school where we have top-notch instructors that work with people that are interested in getting into the business, and people like yourself, Richard, who need to take ongoing continuing education. You can get that through our board. You can get designations through our board. Now, it's been a little interesting over the last couple of months because we haven't been able to run the type of classes that we want because of the pandemic, but still we have a quality real estate school that is associated with our board. In addition, you have grievance committees that the board has. So Richard, if you and I are involved with a transaction and we have some type of disagreement with how something is handled, we can file a grievance at our local board and have our peers listen to us and make recommendations on which way this ought to go. Not only do we have it for members, but there's also consumer grievance committees. So if some buyer or seller that you're working with has a problem with another agent, they can go to the board, and once again, they can be heard so that they feel like things aren't being swept under the rug. We also have mediation services. As you're probably aware, there's a clause in the agreement of sale that talks about mediation. And it says, hey, before you go out and sue somebody, you got to go through mediation first and get in front of a professional mediator that listens to both sides and says, hey, based upon what I hear, how can we come together here in the middle? How can we bridge the gap here? We have very good success rates with our mediation services. Now, there's a small fee for that, but you need to remember that many associations out there don't even have mediation services. So we have it locally here. We have obviously a number of committees, but we also have councils. So I mentioned a second ago, we have appraisers in our association. The type of problems and issues that appraisers have are different than a residential practitioner. So appraisers have their own council where they can get together and look at things that really pertain to them. We have the same thing with commercial and industrial real estate agents. We have a council for them so that they can look at commercial issues. One of the biggest things that I usually try to share with people is our government affairs committee. They are constantly evaluating what is being put forth as far as legislation is concerned. And by the way, at the association, we are fortunate enough to have a government affairs director who keeps his finger on the pulse of all this legislation out there and puts it in front of this committee so that we can look at things and express our opinions to our local representatives and senators so that some of this stuff doesn't get passed without us actually A, seeing it, and B, voicing our opinion. It's an extremely invaluable group. We also have a community partnership group. Years ago, we got involved with the Transitional Living Center. And if you've never been there, any of our members, I would highly encourage you to take a visit, take some time, go there, see what this group does. We have raised an incredible amount of money for them over the years to help people in transition in their lives. If we didn't have a group like this, we would all be trying to do things on an individual basis. So we've had a huge impact by coming together as an association and helping one of these groups within our midst. And, I guess I'll say, what I'm about to say here is not a committee. It's not a group. I think there's an intangible to being part of our association. And the intangible is I get to meet other real estate agents from other companies. And because I've been in this a long time and served on a lot of different committees and task forces, I've met a good portion of our agent population. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing that beats sitting across the table from somebody that you've been involved with on a committee and know what kind of person they are, and know that you're going to be able to work something out in a transaction based upon your experience with them on one of the committees at LCAR. That's probably the most valuable thing that I've gotten out of it.
Absolutely. So you've been president here of LCAR going on 3 months. What kind of goals or things are you hoping to see accomplished, during your tenure here as president?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start out by saying one of the committees or task forces that the association has is something called a long-range planning committee, where there's a group that gets together for 2 straight days over the span of about it's like every 3 to 5 years. And they put together goals for the association to strive for over the upcoming period of time. One of the things that came out of the previous long-range planning committee was to try to communicate with our membership a little bit differently than we have in the past. And Richard, you and I have actually had some discussions on this. You head up the communications committee this year, and I got to say, they do a marvelous job. You're doing an incredible job this year. But up to this point in time, they've mainly been blog posts that have gone out to the membership. And there's some great articles that are out there. I read them all the time. But you and I both know everybody communicates a little differently.
Yep.
And one of the things that we talked about at long range planning was kind of branching out a little bit and say, hey, let's keep our blog writers there, but there's a time and a place for something like what you and I are doing right now, which is an interview where we're getting it out to our membership. I know it's also my goal on a monthly basis to do a membership kind of overview of what happened that particular month so that people can see this stuff. Also utilize more social media than we have in the past. So we're not doing away with the old, we're just kind of expanding on that. So one of the goals that I've had for this year is to start doing more of this type of stuff. And as you know, we've started putting out videos. We have our own YouTube channel now. We're walking, but by the end of the year, I'm hoping to at least be jogging.
Okay, I was going to say maybe fly, but I get we'll go with jog. No, I mean, I know. I appreciate the videos that you've done, the one-on-ones that you've done so far, and just kind of the monthly updates, and just talking to other agents in my office. A lot of people watch them and get a lot out of them. So really
Good to hear.
Yeah, so really do appreciate that you do that. As far as LCAR goes, what kind of influence does LCAR have on a statewide level? I mean, obviously you have these other local associations, York and so forth, but what kind of impact, or even a national level?
Yeah. Interesting you say that. We have one of the groups that we have at LCAR is a group of members that actually serves on the board of directors at the state level, the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. So on a monthly basis, just like we meet locally here at LCAR, the state association meets once a month, and these members go to those board of director meeting and they listen to what's going on a statewide level. And they also are looking for input from local boards. So in many instances, they come back from the state meetings, talk with the local board, talk with the local membership, get our ideas, and then take them back to the state level. So we do have representation on a state level and, for that matter, on a national level. So we do have a voice, just like all the other associations across Pennsylvania have a voice.
Awesome. What do you kind of see? Obviously, COVID is a big issue right now, but what do you kind of see, aside from that, what do you see as kind of the big challenges facing the industry right now?
Well, some of this stuff is kind of mid to long term, but we're facing it down right now. I mean, one of the things that I'm keeping an eye on is compensation issues for real estate agents. There are multiple national lawsuits right now that have to do with how buyers agents are being compensated. And there's a certain portion of the consumers that don't understand the way we do business and have a problem with the way buyer agents by and large get compensated. And they're looking to change that for our entire industry. That could be sweeping in the future. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but that is going to come to a head at some point. And this is not a small thing. They're involving some large franchises. They've involved NAR in this. So this is something that might affect our industry in the future. I recall back in the day when I first started, there was no buyer agency. And when buyer agency hit, that changed the way we all did business. Well, this could also do the same thing. And as I said, it's kind of mid to long term, but it's something that is evolving over time. One of the other things, Richard, that is happening right now, and it's been going on for years, is states, governments looking at independent contractor status. And they're looking at people like us and saying, hey, a real estate company, are these people really independent contractors? Are they employees? Well, every year it seems like this comes up, and the drum, I believe, is getting a little louder. And people are looking at the independent contractor status a little bit more. Just think about it. What would happen to our industry if almost overnight you didn't have independent contractors anymore, that you were an employee? Just think about all the changes that would have to be made in our industry and things that you may have to do. The other thing that I see, which I believe is really sweeping our entire industry right now, is there's so many things out there that you as an agent can get involved with. A new program that you can get, or a new app that you can get, or something that makes it easier for the consumer to do business. And I think what's being lost here is, are we communicating what our value proposition is to the consumer? I know a couple days ago, I was doing a meeting, and I Googled the phrase, how to buy a home. How to buy a home, as simple as that. 12 billion results came up, 12 billion. Think about that. There's a lot of people out there that are saying to us, hey, I can do this on my own. By the way, until they actually get involved with and see what we go through. But I believe we need to do a better job of communicating our value in the years ahead. You know, what real estate is all about is not the latest app. Real estate's about what's up here and what you as an agent bring to the table.
Yeah, it seems easy, you know, obviously as things change, it's easy to kind of, you know, maybe get a little scared. Oh, you know, this is going to, you know, put me out of business, but you have to learn to adapt. And like you said, demonstrate your value, and
Yep.
you know, that's how you become successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to talk about anything these days without talking about COVID. Yeah, I have a jar in my kitchen.
Just a second. If we're gonna talk about this, I'm putting on my mask.
Yeah, I have a jar in my kitchen. It used to be a swear jar, but now it's used anytime I don't hear the word COVID being used throughout the day. I put a quarter in it, and that jar has been completely empty. Mm-hmm. So obviously, COVID's been has had a big impact on our industry. We've all had to adapt. But I mean, what have you seen? Just kind of being in the position you're in. I mean, how is it really, you know, what are some of the major impacts that it's had?
Well, we could be on this call for hours on this. I truly believe that what COVID has done and this pandemic has done, and by the way, we're not through it, the other side yet either. Right. It has just accelerated change at warp speed. I mean, just the things that we did literally a year ago are different than what we're doing today. Think about closings and how we've handled closings through the pandemic. We once thought as a real estate agent that, oh, we all gather around this settlement table and by and large, we all sing Kumbaya and we all have a great time. And And through the pandemic, that all went away. Everything went away. And we've had to deal with settlements differently. And oh, by the way, just think about it. We got properties settled. And now people are starting to ask, do we need to get 10 people in a room all at the same time to hold a settlement? I get that we want to be there and it's a feel-good type of thing, but it's caused us to think about our business and the way we transact things today. Another thing that I have seen, and I don't think we're going to know the effect of this probably until 2 to 3 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, is how much physical space we actually need. Most, I'd say 99% of the real estate companies today have a physical office. There's remote agencies out there. They're different models. But I think it's caused us all to look at our space and say, first of all, do we need all of it? Secondly, if we do need all of it, do we need to use it all in the same way that we did in the past? I know at the office that I'm in, there's a certain percentage of agents that just don't want to come into the office because of the pandemic. And the question is going to come up in the near future, once we hopefully get through the pandemic with the vaccines and whatnot, is are these agents going to continue to keep coming into the office? Will they just transact business remotely? I think we've all seen this past year that we can transact business remotely. Mm-hmm. The reason why I said it's going to take a little bit of time is I think we're going to get through this, and then we're going to see how are agents and brokerages reacting to office space and what you actually need. And probably the last thing I'd mention on this is, me more so than ever, the way we communicate with people has changed literally overnight. You and I are now communicating via Zoom. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what Zoom was on January 1st of last year. Never used it before. Yeah. And overnight, I had to learn to use it just like that.
Now you're a pro.
So we're now utilizing this. We're now communicating not only with our clients in this particular way, but with myself, with my agents. I run sales meetings and office meetings on Zoom. I'm now recording them and actually posting them for our office at later points. So anybody who couldn't make the meeting can come back at any time and see it. I've gotten so many positive comments from agents in my office saying, hey, I couldn't make the meeting, but I'm so glad that you put this on YouTube so that I can see it at a later point. What we're doing communication-wise has just been obliterated and changed in the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we were all scared of how we would adapt, but I think that, we've all seemed to have adapted pretty well, mm-hmm. Surprisingly.
Yep.
So let's talk about newer agents. So obviously COVID presents a huge challenge for everybody, veterans and new agents alike. But I feel like, especially for new agents, I think, gosh, if I wouldn't want to be a new agent starting out right now, especially with COVID. I feel like if you can survive this, you can, your business can survive anything. But even, with the challenges of COVID, without the challenges of COVID, what do you see as a, big challenge for new agents, and what can they do?
I just mentioned a second ago, if you write how to buy a home,
mm-hmm.
billion results, there's so much information out there for not only new agents, but even veteran agents. But with new agents, because they don't even know what they don't even know at this point in time,
right,
is they're getting into the business and all of this stuff is thrown at them all at once. And I liken it to drinking from a fire hose, but it's not even a fire hose at this point. It's like drinking from Niagara Falls. Is all of these new agents are looking at all these things saying, where do I even begin here? I don't even know where to turn. So that's a challenge for new agents because they feel if they're not getting involved with something, they're missing out on that and how to generate business for themselves. I go back to basics though. I often talk to newer agents that are getting into the business, and one of the things I say to them all the time is, or they ask me, is what do I need to do to become a success in this business? And I said, listen, if I lined up the top 10 most successful people in my office against the wall and ask each one of them that question, I'm going to get 10 different answers. Everybody does it a little differently. Now, there are basics that you've got to get down and you have to be good at. But what you're good at, Richard, is different than what I'm good at. I'm telling new agents, look what you're good at, look what you like to do, and focus on that to the nth degree. Make sure that you're the best person at doing that. It could be handling internet leads. It could be doing open houses. It could be your sphere of influence. But whatever it is, find that one or two things and stick with it and put the blinders on as far as all those shiny objects out there, because while they could help you, they could also distract you. And that's a big problem with new agents.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's easy to kind of get caught up in is, what are other agents doing?
Yeah.
You're friends with someone on Facebook. Oh man, they have this new listing, and it's that can kind of discourage you a little bit too. So it's, personally, I feel it's important just to kind of focus on you and, like you said, what your strengths are and what works best for you.
Right.
So let's, we're all kind of busy right now, with business, personal lives. It's kind of easy to not see, changes or things that are going on. What can agents do to kind of stay up to date on, industry changes? Obviously they can go to LCAR website, but, what are some ways that agents can kind of stay up to date?
Well, the first thing I would say to most agents that are associated with an office is listen to what your office manager is putting out. I know a lot of times I get a little frustrated when an agent will come to me a month after I put something out to the office and say, hey, can you tell me about this? And I'll say, I feel like saying, are you kidding me? I put this out a month ago. But we'll move on. If you look at my computer and look at the bookmarks in my computer, I probably have 50 to 75 sites that I have saved over the years that I consistently go to. And I probably have the top 5 or 6 that I go to on a consistent basis to get information about our business, what are new trends, what are things I ought to be looking for. You just mentioned one of them here. If you haven't been to LCAR's website, there's a spot in LCAR's website that you can go to and get the board of directors minutes. I know the communications committee actually publishes them, but a lot of people just gloss over them. You ought to read what's happening in your local association. In addition, PAR has a great website too, where you can go there and find out all the things that are happening on a statewide level. They had an awesome section of their website, PAR did that is, that dealt with the pandemic and all the changes and protocols that we were trying to deal with. They did a phenomenal job with that. A portion of their website also, as you're probably aware, is the Just Listed blog that they put out, where they deal with various issues. And I know they have Jim Goldsmith on there giving us his legal opinions on things. You ought to read these articles because there's some really timely topics there that could affect you in your business. And I mean, just on a real estate national level, I've mentioned locally LCAR and PAR. Realtor.org is a really, really good site that provides tons of information about what's happening on a nationwide basis with our not only national association, but all the way down to the local levels as well. I know when I start looking at some of these things, once again, you can go down rabbit holes, but one of the things I've also done is look at some really good sites. RIS Media, RIS Media has a great site. Real Trends has a great site that you can get information from. On a video blog site that I started watching probably a year or two, you can go to YouTube and plug it into a search engine here. It's called The Real Word, and it's 2 agents up in New England that basically discuss topics, current topics in the real estate business, and they are really, really good, and they're very timely.
Awesome. So let's talk about a little bit, what can you recommend to agents who maybe want to get a little bit more involved locally? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, with committees, but there's events and things like that. But what can agents do who maybe want to take a little bit more of an active role in the association?
Well, usually about the fall of every year, there is an email that goes out. This year we'll probably have a video email that goes out. There's an email that goes out to all the membership and basically asking, hey, here's a whole list of committees that we're looking for volunteers on. I would encourage you, as somebody who may not have ever even thought about getting involved with LCAR, take a look at that list and sign up for things. Now, not everything's going to be available to you. Obviously, if you're a first-year agent, that's going to prohibit you from serving on the board of directors. But there are other things that you can do, and to get your feet wet, just get involved with these. And oh, by the way, don't just sign up for them. And if you get selected to be put on these things, show up and get involved, just like you've done, Richard. How long have you been on the communications committee?
This is my third year. Yeah, third year, I think.
So you've been on the communications committee 3 years, and you're like 3 years into it, and they say, okay, we're going to make you the head of this darn thing because you show up all the time and you write good articles. The same thing applies on all these other committees and task force. Show up, contribute. And by the way, I mentioned it a while back here. One of the intangibles that you're going to get is you are going to get to see people from across our industry and get an opportunity to meet them, so that once again, when things come up in difficult transactions, if I look across the table at who I'm dealing with, I'm saying, this is not going to be a problem because I've worked with them at other committees. The other thing I would say is there are some social things throughout the year at LCAR. Show up at these things. Go and meet people in kind of like a down setting. So you don't necessarily have to talk business all the time. You'll be amazed at the type of people that are involved in our association that go to these things. Some really, really quality people.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to, make your members aware of? Anything coming up that we should know about?
Yeah, I think I've been talking about it throughout this whole interview, and the one thing I will say, our business is changing at the speed of light. It is changing right before all of our eyes. I know there's some basics that we all do, but the one thing that I would encourage our entire membership is embrace change. Do not go like this when change comes at us and said, hey, I wish things were like they used to be. That is going to change rapidly. If you're not embracing change, you are going to be left behind. So keep an open mind, embrace new things that are coming at us, not only on a local level, but on a national level. And years from now, you will still be left standing because you've embraced that change.
Awesome. Well, hey, Tom, just again, want to thank you for taking the time to interview with us today. Really appreciate everything that you do, representing us here at LCAR, and just fighting for us as realtors. So again, thank you so much. Where can people, agents, find you? If they want to, contact you or with complaints, maybe.
Yeah. Well, really, to be perfectly frank, to talk about Google, just Google me. If you Google me, I'm all over. I'm on social media sites. I'm obviously with my company's website, but you can find all my contact information by just using that simple search engine.
Simple enough.
Awesome. Richard, I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. And we'll very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Yep. Take care.
You too.